they're just all. It's just 5 playmakers, guys. It's actually
Hmm.
just 5 fakers on one team.
Golden
Well,
Guardians is five fakers. That's the title of the episode.
that's the title of the episode, man. I mean, that might as well be it. I think
Golden
that'll be it.
fakers.
Golden Fakers,
Golden
I like it.
faker.
Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast. I'm super excited because we've got Kevin, Mitchell, Alistair, and myself all here back together again for another episode. It's been a while. Dude, schedules have been hard to coordinate, but I appreciate Kevin and Mitchell holding it down. Alistair, I know you're busy working, still back in Canada, but I'm just happy when we can all get together because it's fun talking about League with my boys, and hopefully you out there have been enjoying the discussions, watching the podcast, and all of that good stuff. So we're kind of down the finish line now of the LCS. I mean, we've got one more week, I think, of the regular season. Lots of stuff happening, playoff pictures shaping up, some interesting surprises heading towards the final stretch of the LCS. Before we jump into all the games and all of that good stuff, let me get your just initial reactions, thoughts over this past week's action.
Yeah, this was one of the best weeks of LCS in memory. Like, I just had fun. There were so many games where I was like, even between the mid-tier teams, I was like, wow, that was just like that was sick. Yeah, we're not the perfect team fighters, whatever, but there was just so many proactive moments, so many cool back and forths, so many just like cool either plays or picks or both. I had a lot of fun. I think it was a sick week. I think LCS, like, if we could always be this entertaining and proactive, like I would always have fun with LCS watching, just like from a gameplay standpoint.
Yeah.
I can definitely agree with that. Especially because it doesn't feel as standardized. Because usually you can kind of just look at the schedule and just be like, oh yeah, this team's gonna win, this team's gonna win. Fairly simple. This week definitely proved that wrong. Um, in EG going 0-3, and one of those teams being FlyQuest, who has not won a game in
Mm-hmm.
what 3 weeks,
Yeah.
I think. So I mean, it's definitely entertaining. This teams realistically, no team seems crazy dominant aside from Cloud9, in my opinion.
Yeah, even with that, Cloud9 isn't that dominant during this regular season. They are
Yeah.
dropping a good amount of games to like Team Liquid, Energy, and a variety. Can you guys hear my dog? Is that barking in here?
Yeah, I could hear it. Everyone cover your eyes. Mitchell's about to beat his dog.
Oh, no.
We do not condone animal violence.
Absolutely not.
Close your eyes. Close your eyes.
Yeah, we're
Yo,
no longer on
hey.
the YouTube Kids Network.
I resent that.
Oh, he
Literally,
heard
all
us.
I did was brought my dog inside. Okay, I did not touch it. I was just like,
Okay.
yo, get in here!
We-
Stop barking at people.
We believe you.
Yeah, that
Mitchell
sounded
muted.
like a dog outside.
Mitchell muted his mic. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, no. It's
No.
just like,
We
yo,
don't
come-
condone
'cause-
that.
So C9, they've been losing some games, right? I think they're 0-2 versus TL. They lost some games to like Energy and stuff. I think the league is actually fairly balanced. The top side of the league is not too dominant, and definitely the bottom of the league. I mean, what IMT and FlyQuest are sitting down there, and they don't seem like free wins at all. I mean, IMT was on a 10-game losing streak, and then they started picking up wins. A lot of their games have been competitive. Like FlyQuest, I mean, the fact that they're like sitting down there at ninth place, they are still a competitive team. Like you cannot get like I feel like FlyQuest is in that unfortunate scenario where they're at the bottom of the league, but everybody tries very hard to beat them because they know what they can do, and they don't give them any breathing room. Where I imagine like 100 Thieves did not expect to lose to IMT, right? But they did because IMT gave them a run for their money. I'm sure 100 Thieves didn't try very hard, but everybody tries super hard against the ninth place FlyQuest, right? So
Yeah.
the league feels very balanced. I mean, this is some of the most exciting times that you can have watching Pro League. It's the end of the regular season. It's playoffs. LEC has already started. LPL is about to start. LCK is about to start. We're about to start, and then it's just freaking best of series until Worlds, and it is a great time to be alive.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that sentiment. And, just speaking of like the parity of like, teams, good teams not being as dominant, so-called bad teams playing above expectations, like that's what makes the LCS exciting, right? Because it is kind of been unpredictable. And now that we passed the halfway mark, officially and are in that last stretch, it was kind of a waiting game to see if these underperforming teams, or excuse me, like the lower tier teams would still perform great, and then the higher tier teams, like like a FlyQuest that were in a slump, would they come out of that? And now that we're seeing it in the last stretch, it's like, wow, this is actually the playoff picture. Like the lower teams have performed well, and the teams that we thought would do well, some of them are not. And so there's no more excuses. This is what LCS looks like. And one team, the first team I wanted to kind of dig into, is the only team that went 3-0 this past week, and that's Energy. And even in that case, like their games weren't like just clean and one-sided wins, but they still got the wins. And so, let's talk about them first. They've been, again, just we always talk about this. They're carrying over the CLG culture, right? We don't know who they're going to win against, who they're going to lose against. They get 3 wins, but like I said, those games, very either long or like they had to make some play to come back, and so very kind of still up in the air. So still hard for me to get a clean read. I think what's nice is that all teams, including Energy, do have some sort of identity. Like when we see Ignar on like engages like Rel, we like to see that. Contracts playing, crazy characters and making awesome moves sometimes. So they start to have an identity, but still not super consistent. So what are your thoughts on NRG?
Yeah, my thoughts on NRG this week were that FBI played better than he did in previous weeks, and where like they made some really boneheaded moves, right? I like that they continue to play their. I think they continue to play their NRG style in the sense of like they play what they think they can pull off. Like they played Yone on mid, and Tristan is not rare, but not every team can pull off, and they looked very dominant with it against FlyQuest. So that was good. I'm not convinced that they're like a top team by this quality of their wins, but more importantly, they beat 2 teams that were like right above them in this. Like they have to beat these guys to be a playoff contender, right? GGS is like potentially a first place team in the league. They're like the BLG of our league, right? They're like second place last season. They look strong this season. They have a lot of fight in them. And then Dig was like on an upward trend for a while, and now they're looking kind of crap. But NRG did a good job against them, I would say. Even though that was the longest game, I felt like there weren't a lot of times where I thought, yeah, NRG is gonna lose. They might throw a fight or two, but like that's normal. Like everywhere, every league, including JDG, every league team does this globally. I think that's just how the game works. Like there's a lot of mechanics and a lot of characters who can just decide everything by himself, like Nico, for example, before all the nerfs.
Personally, I've kind of been hoping well for this team since the beginning.
Oh, we know. we know, Alistair.
It's no surprise.
Yeah.
It's no surprise. They're doing a little bit worse than I expect them to be honest, but that's also because Golden Guardians is doing a lot better than I expected them to do. So with Golden Guardians performing, this is kind of where I would expect NRG. I do think that their bot lane does need to kind of pick it up a notch. I feel like they're a bit inconsistent. I feel like that's where a lot of their issues come from, especially because Palafox, I mean, I think he's their strong point on that team. Contracts is good, Dokla is good, but I think Palafox is really the main carry of that team. He is kind of the what holds it together, and I kind of hope they make Worlds. I don't think they will, but I'm an energy supporter.
Let's go, man. You're fine. It's LCS, baby.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want.
Don't have to feel ashamed.
I mean, LeagueDad is a TSM fan for you.
Exactly.
So
That's right. That's why I support you, man.
I'm not usually one to support a team, but if I have to, it's NRG.
All right.
Yeah, that's fair. They have a weird thing about that, especially this weekend. Going 3-0. Like we mentioned, their games are nowhere close to being clean, right? They're very messy. They're not like direct, like start getting ahead and then close out the games. It's tons of fights that they lose, tons of like times getting caught out, tons of like just weird execution in fights. And then they play fight really well, they play fight really badly, they get caught out, they go for, oh my god, Energy does this in all of their games throughout this entire year where they hard commit to get kills that don't actually lead to any objectives or anything besides the kills, right? They'll burn multiple flashes and ultimates and TPs to get like a kill or two, and all it does is get them some tempo, right? And they have to snowball that tempo for like a couple minutes so that actually means something at like a Dragon or Riftchild fight. This team is very unorganized right now, and I'm thinking that like they should be cleaning it up because that's like the trend that this team has gone actually like they've gotten better as the year progresses, and I think that's a positive sign for any energy fans
Yeah.
is no matter how messy they are clearly progressing forward. I think the big standout is actually Ignar being on engaged supports only. They're not messing around with the range supports. I feel like
Hmm.
they did that for actually half the season where Ignar was about half the time on range supports, half the time on melee supports. Now he's full time on melee supports. He looks much better. The team looks much better. I think Contracts is putting on a serious clinic. I mean, I think last week he went 0-9-3 or something on Maokai against
Yeah.
TSM, and after that it's been straight bangers. Like he's playing all the engage. He's playing very aggressive. He is so far in the enemy's jungle, like 24/7. Like the man is invading like level 3, like 3 camp invading as a rel. I'm like, you're a psychopath. That doesn't seem like a good strategy, but it works out because they're they're coordinated, they're communicating. Um, yeah, this team definitely has like they need to do all the things that they do at better times, essentially. Like, because I think against better teams that are more prepared. Golden Guardians is definitely like that was their big test and they won it. Golden Guardians was like they were feeding into that like into the insanity. They were fighting 24/7 with energy,
Yeah.
back and forth. Like River is on Nautilus jungle, and
Hmm.
very clearly Nautilus jungle is one of those champs where it's like, you get a good level 3, you're probably one of the strongest champions of level 2 and level 3 in the jungle.
Yeah.
And then after that, you can't farm, you fight only, and you die a lot. And that's exactly what happens. So, I think energy they can take the fight to other people. The problems you're going to run into when other teams slow it down a bit and they are a bit more organized and coordinated. Take they take like losses like intentionally so that they can get an advantage somewhere else later on instead of just diving in and fighting 24/7. So
Yeah.
energy, very interesting team. I think if they clean things up, they actually can be a contender. I mean, they have the hands, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think in two of their games, specifically against FlyQuest and Dignitas, both of those comps, like their comps had very like strong team fight comps, and I got to shout out Dokla for a hot second because he had some tough matchups, and he was just kind of like just basically taking it from behind because he was like not he couldn't do anything. I mean, he was playing
Very
Orn, he was
good.
on Orn duty, and then he was like I think one game he's playing Renekton against Quinn. Like he couldn't do anything, but yet
Right.
he was still in there and he made huge impacts in his game. And particularly in the game against FlyQuest, like they had Orn, Sejuani and Rel, and like their wombo combos were just like really insane. And it was like they held out long enough to where they could just team fight and win every time. And same thing against Dignitas. Yeah, it was cool to see Rich on Quinn. I personally love it when there's counter picks going on. And I mean the CS disparity had Rich had 409 CS to Douglas 292. Right, he was really getting pooped on. But when it came to team fights, like Quinn can't really do anything, and she's just kind of floating around the top. And oftentimes you'd see the whole team fight done, and then you see this little bird flying in, Rich kind of going, "Oh, what do I do here? What do I do?" And so I just felt like they were able to hold on and just win in team fights. I don't know if that's going to be the case against top teams. You
Yeah,
know?
I gotta bring up something in that game for
Yeah.
Energy versus Dignitas. Like Dignitas definitely had a lot of chances to win that game, right? I mean, they were
Yeah, they
ahead
did.
like
Oh yeah.
5+K for most of that game. There was a moment where, man, this is one moment where I think Tomo might look back on himself, but it's like Tomo was like free firing on Ashe in the mid lane against most of NRG against like, but they were super low. Like Dokla was super low,
Hmm.
Contracts was super low, and Contracts was preparing a Hex Flash over this wall to jump on Tomo. But Tomo has Flash, like a really, I don't know, just aware ADC, a good ADC, not even like an amazing ADC. I think they just go forward and they send it and they try to outplay the enemy team with Flash. And Tomo had the chance to like kill 3 of Energy members and get the Baron and just end the game.
Hmm.
Um, so it's like these little moments where like you see energy win the game, but then you also look at the enemy team as like they kind
Yeah.
of slipped up a couple times here to let them in. So,
Hmm.
that's why we're still testing energy and
Exactly. Yeah.
Dignitas. Oh my God, they had so many chances this weekend
Hmm.
to not go 0-3 and actually,
Yeah.
not repeat history because they were looking great all split. But what's the Dignitas narrative? end of the season gets close, playoffs comes around, they're not relevant anymore. And
Yeah.
we maybe some of us got tricked into thinking Dignitas would be relevant, but yeah.
Well, I mean, let's speak about Dignitas because let's flip the other way, right?
Yeah.
03, the
Yeah.
Dignitas was that team, and again, like I hate to see it. I do think I agree with you, Mitchell. There were times like I didn't think they were going to go 03. In fact, I had to check because I was like, they went 03 because it felt like they played decently, and I think that's what's awesome about like this team. Even though technically we thought they were going to be a bottom ranked team, they lost to TSM. They lost to Energy, like we just mentioned, and then they lost to Immortals. That was the surprising one to me, is that they lost to Immortals. But overall, I'm still pretty bullish on this team. I think this team will hopefully make playoffs. We'll see. They do have a pretty interesting schedule, and also we got to see how FlyQuest does. So I don't know. It's going to be like, can they pull it out in the clutch to make playoffs? I hope they do, because I just think it'd be, yeah, I mean, I think it'd be cool though, because this was a team that nobody was giving credit for, myself included. Honestly, I didn't think anything was going to happen. So give your thoughts on Dignitas there.
Yeah, I think Dignitas, of the bottom four teams, right? If Dignitas is in a playoff series, the bottom four teams being Dignitas, 100 Thieves, and Mortals FlyQuest. If they're in a playoff series, I think they can do damage, right? They actually do have firepower. That Tome example is such a good example of a moment where they're just like, he's just not confident. He doesn't want to be on that clip where he solo throws the game or whatever. But like, not even a top 380 carry will definitely be moving forward. There was definitely a world where as long as you have flash up, when you have flash up, you do that play. If you don't, then yeah, don't be like Luger last year where he just ran into the bush and giga into it with Ghost, right? On Zeri. I totally think these guys can do damage. I think they've improved. They have the fire. It's Jensen, Centaur, and Rich, right, as a top side. If they're like even playing at 80%, and I think these guys are usually better in playoffs, if anything, than the regular season, this is a team that can do something. While meanwhile, like, I don't even want to get into Immortals and FlyQuest. Like, they just look like corpses walking. And then I'm not as convinced about 100 Thieves because they, even though their score is good, they just can't beat anyone better than them. It looks like they can barely beat teams worse than them, as we saw this week where they lost. Double have literally said, I don't know how we got to 100 Thieves, but Double have literally said
Yeah.
that Immortals is a free win, guys. So
Yeah.
Dignitas is not a free win. I don't think anyone wants to be. If you had to choose, right, between
Yeah.
100 Thieves and Dignitas, 9 out of 10 people would choose 100 Thieves, I think.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah.
Well, before Alistair goes, did you have any thoughts real quick? Because Poom, I forgot to say that Poom did, he's in now, right, as their support. Again, this Poom was from CLG last year, all pretty good support, right? But, he's just making his debut again this split. So, Kevin, did you have any thoughts on Poom?
My thoughts on Poom is I think actually, despite them going over, I think it was better than Diamond. In my mind,
Yeah.
on average, but it wasn't by much, and it was unfortunate because when you're losing as a support, you especially as the support on melee engaged characters, like I believe he played Nihilus Rel. I don't remember what the other game was Braum, I think.
Yeah,
Like
bro.
those are just characters you're gonna look bad in Fiesta games if you're losing, right? And I thought he was better than Diamond, but I think that's a very low bar. I think Diamond was the worst support or the second worst support in the
So you're
league.
saying anything would have been an upgrade? I could have subbed in there.
I'd say anything would have been better, but I don't want them
We don't
to
need Senna.
misconstrue. I
Yeah,
don't want
exactly.
them to misconstrue 0-3 Poom as like we need to sub him back out. Then this might become a shit show because
Right.
Diamond's either he's had a fire on his ass or he's super tilted because he's been around for almost 8 years or 9 years in the pro scene. So like this guy probably needs needs confidence to do well, and he hasn't been doing well at all. Poom,
Okay.
it was better in my mind, but you guys can argue otherwise.
I personally believe Poom should not have been subbed out in the first place. I think he should have. He
Just
probably should have stayed with the rest of the energy squad, in my opinion. I don't think they actually need to change any of the roster, but we can leave that. I think Poom was an upgrade over Diamond, and I honestly kind of forgot what I was gonna try and say.
About Poom or Dignitas?
You
No,
said all
about
that needs to be said
Dignitas.
about them. Oh, okay.
Did want to say I think the only team that is really would be considered a free win. I do remember want to say this would be Immortals, which is kind of ironic, I suppose.
Especially because you said Dignitas shouldn't even be in the league right now.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Hey, I am more than happy with being wrong
Yeah.
when it comes to things like this because it is not entertaining watching a dead horse, especially with names like they had in spring. You've Jensen Santorin and they can barely pull out a single win the entire split. I mean,
Hmm.
it's just like that hurts to watch, man. It just, especially with an org that has a tendency to kind of flop out, and they're showing signs of life. Really happy with it. I mean, I don't think they make it through the first round of playoffs. I'll just say that now. Um, but it's definitely nice seeing them do well. I think Rich is definitely a breath of fresh air.
Oh
Picking
yeah.
things like the Quinn. He's not afraid to do Ilaoi, which
Yeah.
is not something you see very often. He kind of brought a lot of more people into playing it. At least I don't know how much it was seen in or played in other leagues. I suppose because I don't watch as much of it. But the Quinn's nice, and it's just nice, having that fresh blood. Not
Yeah.
paying some Korean top laner who's a sub for some team for $3 million just to play half a split and then start running it down in playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how Rich does because he already started his running it down, right? He went
That's true.
zero
It's
nine
not
and
playoffs
3
yet.
on an Alawi. That was
Hmm.
the last game against Immortals, right? He was getting solo killed by Solo. Uh, Probably of the worst top laners in the league, right? He got solo killed like 3 times by him under a turret as Alawi. So I mean, Rich was definitely protesting the Poom Diamond swap in his own way.
Yeah.
Um, I think I mean Poom was not noticeably good or compared to Diamond. I think it was a complete mistake to sub out Poom if I'm being honest. Um because regardless of how Diamond plays in game, right? The out of game stuff I think is really important and Dignitas looked way more coordinated with Diamond. Like you sub somebody out this late into the year. I mean, this is why I also think like the Spirax subbing that FlyQuest didn't work out for them too well.
Yeah.
Like you kind of missed your boat when it comes to substitutions. Like you're too close to the end of the season. There's too much pressure. You have to get really lucky to sub someone in at this point to try and turn around your season, right? So I think like the stuff with Team Liquid and APA that makes a lot more sense because they're at the top of the league and they switched somebody who they really understood with someone else who they really understood. I don't think Dignitas fully understands Diamond or Poom yet, and they just switched him out on a whim. And it looks like, I mean, this weekend, even though their games were competitive and close, there is that little extra bit of inconsistency in their communication that was added where Diamond is running it down, right? But he's doing it for the team. I can't say the same for Poom. I just say he's running it down with the team, you know? So Dignitas, I think they might have boofed their momentum. I hope that Poom can bring it back in week 3 because I do like him as a player. I liked him on CLG. Rich, he's had a great split, and I would say his last 2 games on it was Alawi, and the other game
Quinn.
was
Quinn
it
and
was
Renekton.
the
I mean,
Quinn game was
GP. GP.
GP. The GP
Yeah.
was the bad game.
Hmm.
GP and Alawi were quite terrible from him. So I mean, those are pretty much his biggest 2 stinkers of the year. I think if
Yeah.
he doesn't have any more stinkers for the rest of the split, they'll slide into playoffs fine. But you know, I think if they go like 0-3 or 1-2, they're at very high risk of just not making it to playoffs
Yeah.
next week.
I mean,
So
I'll say like just because it's worth talking about is he's not even in like the top two top laner contention anymore. His last 2 weeks, not just his last week, his last 2 weeks were just anywhere from fine, like you weren't entering, you're not fake god, to you are worse than fake god. He went 0-9 against Immortals top. Like what was going on in that game? That man was legitimately trying to get a world record. Like I think there was like an over under bet on him or something like that, like over 6 stats or something. And then he's like, okay, I gotta cash in, guys. I thought it was terrible. He might not even be all pro anymore. And they were talking about him as like the fourth or third contender for MVP, not just top lane. So
yeah,
I think he dropped off a little bit, and then we'll
I think
see
he
how he
did.
does in playoffs. But it was a pretty big drop off. I'm scared of the Korean top laner or Korean anybody coming in, being really good for the first 9 games, and then falling off a cliff, a la Vikla, a la so many examples, right? Prince, Vikla, like they're okay. A lot of them are FlyQuest. Well, there are so many examples historically of Koreans looking really good until they get NA solo queue in their veins. So
Yeah.
I
that's
think
the
Rich,
worrying sign.
if he can have a really standout last week and he can drag Dignitas into playoffs at a decent seeding, then he has a chance to still make All Pro top lane. I don't think he's making MVP any day of the week.
No,
No, no one's gonna vote him
no way.
MVP. But
Yeah.
I think he can still slide into All Pro and like a third spot if he. But if he has another mediocre or bad week, I think he's probably gone from the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you got to remember, like, he was getting a lot of praise when he was playing Cassante, right? And then Cassante and then
Sure.
Quinn, this kind of like, whoa, Quinn. And then he played the Alawi that one time. It was like, whoa, but this Alawi did not look good. And the rest of the, like, quote unquote, like, meta stuff, he hasn't won anything. Jax, he's lost. Poppy hasn't won with. Renekton hasn't won with. Malphite hasn't won with. He won one game with Rumble. So
Rumble's broken. Oh my
yeah,
goodness,
Rumble's
yeah.
broken. So, again, just going back to like, is he kind of just a one trick, two trick kind of thing, Cassante, or like, trying to surprise you with one of his crazy picks, right? Even though they did lose, his Quinn game was still good. So, again, it's still to be determined. But let's move on. Sticking with the lower tier teams, because, there was two teams in that lower half there that did go 2-1. The first one I'm going to talk about first, so we can kind of get them out of the way. Honestly, it's just Immortals, because they went 2-1. But again, this is a team that probably will not make playoffs because they have a pretty tough schedule. So they play Evil Geniuses. They play FlyQuest, which again, if FlyQuest is really going to try hard, maybe they lose that, and then they play Energy. So Immortals, real quick, let's go over them. They probably, again, like I said, won't make playoffs, but any thoughts on them? They did go 2-1.
Yeah, let's make this one quick.
Let's make it quick, because
get this one
yeah.
out
I
there.
think Kenvi had his like first good week in his history as a pro player. Sort of good week, like for his standards. He was out ganking closer. So I mean, good for them. They beat a dead 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves did not prepare for them. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. And close like Kenvi is now the 9th best jungler in the league. Great. That's what happened.
Hey, let's
Jeez.
go.
I'm happy for them, but there's no way it carries on next week. Like they win one
Okay.
max.
Yeah.
We got Battle of the Bums. I
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think they'll go 1-2. I think
Okay.
they will. I think they'll lose the FlyQuest, and hot take, they're gonna beat EG.
Okay. All right.
That's my hot
Yep.
take.
I'm excited to talk about a little bit EG later, but yeah, IMT. I mean, honestly, they looked good in this week, beating other teams that were in their similar place in standings. If you're gonna make the playoffs, that's what you have to do. I think they have to go 3-0 to even remotely stand a chance, and it's still not in their hands. So, I mean, good luck to them. I think that they really picked it up, and Tactical is finally back to what
Yeah.
20,
Yeah.
2020, I think, when he debuted. So it's been 3 years since we've seen this level of Tactical. And he looks very aggressive, and he's got some clean mechanics in hands and good positioning and stuff. So, I mean, that's good for him. But like it's like been what 2 or 3 weeks since we've been able to say this about Tactical in the past like 2 to 3 years. So I hope this team, they got some likable players. I hope they can do something, but I'm fully expecting them to end 9th or 10th still. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Same. I don't think they'll make playoffs. I'm glad that you spotlighted Tactical, because he has been a bright spot on that team. And it kind of seems like they're playing around that, which is kind of cool. So even though they are lower tier, I will say again, like, it seems like they have an identity, seems like they have somewhat of a game plan. Hopefully they can translate that moving forward. Maybe Kenvi, they'll put him on some carries, and maybe those two can be carries. I don't know, but
Yeah.
there's some positive from it. Yeah.
I think the key thing to note and to take away is that they are no longer a free win. I think they were for a long time this summer split, but they're not. They seem to
Yeah.
really have tightened things down.
Okay. Well, then let's go to TSM, because TSM, again, they're still on the bottom half of the team, but been playing well. They went 2-1 again. They beat Dignitas, and they beat Team Liquid. Sorry, Kevin.
Yep,
But they
that
did
was a
lose to
hype
100
game.
Thieves. Yeah, it was a
It
hype
was a
game.
hype
So,
game. I will definitely give them that.
so I mean, look, this is a team that nobody expected to be good, and they are in the playoff hunt, right? Like, they still have to clutch it out. But what are your thoughts on TSM?
My thoughts on TSM are Boogie is quietly probably one of the better top half junglers, at least in the league. I think he's proactive. He's got another new mid laner. Like, he keeps getting new mid laners, and as a jungler, I like thought about, like, that's actually really impressive how he can continue to make good plays while having like Ruby on the team and then switching between Sandy over and over. Right, that's really impressive. Hanser, I don't think is it. I think this team could actually be very good if Hanser was like a little better. But I'm very happy that they're just old names on this team. That like I don't like recycled veterans. Okay, like we
Sure.
we all know that. But I am glad that there are people here who weren't getting chances like Turtle, and like Turtle has been he's like the life of this team in my mind.
Yeah.
Like he's good, Chime is good, and Insanity. Like I saved him for last. Like this guy, how does this guy like not have a starting spot
I
beforehand? Like he
know.
has been a positive effect. Like yeah, he went 3-3 in his first 2 weeks, but they were hard games. Like his Kaisa game, he basically just carried his whole team
Oh
to
my
victory.
gosh,
He
yeah.
straight up solo carried on AP Kaisa in a pro
Yeah.
match, and I was like, all right, okay. He's been insane ever since he got off the bench. Pun aside, right? So this
Hmm.
guy, I'm really glad that he is back. I'm glad that he's starting, and I am happy to see TSM in their Swan Song not be completely useless because it would be really sad to just have like our last member and be like, yeah, they were 10th
Yeah.
place, they sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's a good Swan song. I mean, obviously, everyone kind of. Let's be honest, everyone shit talks DSM for good reason. In recent history, I mean, they've lost a lot of fans. League dead. But
But mine was against the management, not
yeah,
the
yeah,
player. And I
I'm.
am happy with for Wild Turtle Hansard, but
Yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
it's
Yeah.
it's nice. It's nice having this Swan song, especially for Wild
Okay,
Turtle, who
Mr.
Yeah.
I was.
TSM fan. Yep.
I
Shut
was.
up.
I was really. I was. It would have really hurt to watch him just play on IMT for 2 years and then just his career ends.
Yeah.
One of the legends of the league, and he just kind of fizzles out playing on a
Yeah,
bottom
he
tier
broke
team.
the record by the way really quickly for the most games. So
Oh,
612 LCS games
wow.
played, longest ever. So that's
Wild Turtle.
great.
Let's go,
Swan
baby.
Song, yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, it's again, I don't think they make worlds. I honestly kind of hope they don't make worlds because I do not want to see Hanser play against
Mm,
any international top lane. Feels like that would be painful. Where like 2016 is too far away. But overall, I mean, it's nice. I agree. Insanity should have. He should definitely have a spot, and I think he will have a spot. This well in spring. I think there's
mm-hmm.
definitely there's no way he just goes back to NACL. I think teams would be trolling, but they'll probably just import someone from Korea or China because
He's
that's
going
how
to
much America
FlyQuest,
works.
baby. He's going to
LCS.
Yeah,
FlyQuest. I don't
maybe
know.
honestly,
Yeah.
LCS
Okay.
is a
but
funny league.
I don't know how to feel. Because I feel like a lot of these players probably won't get another spot. I feel like, I mean, Hansard, I would be very surprised if he has a starting spot. Insanity should have one. I think, in my opinion, Turtle should call it after this one. He
Hmm.
broke the record for the most games. He's ending on a like
He's ending on
honestly
TSM too.
what should be considered a good run. He's
Hmm.
returning to his roots. I think it's a good place to call it. Chime, he's good, but he's not crazy. So I don't know if a team's gonna want to pick him up. But and Boogie, I think he's got more time. I've been impressed with him, especially picking things like the Nocturne that single-handedly like 1v9 that one game where I can't remember who they were playing. Was it Energy?
Team Liquid.
Team Liquid. Yeah,
Yeah.
because Yon on Aphelios. Yeah, the Nocturne pick kind of 1v9 in that game, in my opinion. Obviously,
Yeah, that's along with
Insanity
this,
got all the
he
credit for the
enabled
Kaisa.
insanity.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah.
but you know, it, I, as easy it is to shit on DSM, game recognized game. They're doing well. They deserve their flowers. The players. It's got to separate the players from the organization.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Good on them.
definitely. Like, I just want to talk about just the team and not the org, because I mean the org is such a shit show. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean Chime, I've been slowly, steadily giving him little bits of credit throughout the years that he's been playing. I know he's their main shot caller, and he's like their main playmaker. I think Chime is probably quite underrated, um, considering that he's able to like. It seems like he's able to get his team of like miscreants on the same page. I think that's very valuable. Like there's a lot of conversations about what it looks like to be a good player on a bad team, and for all we know that's exactly what Chime might be doing. I mean, I've been feeling like little inklings of this and not really trying to fully believe it for over a year or two now. I want to see Chime on a good team. Honestly, I want to see Chime on a team where they need a shot caller in the support position, because I actually think I mean, it's mostly just like it's hard to know how he's making those calls, right? Except little snippets you see of their comms and stuff that you see in LCS. But I mean, I think Chime is probably secretly the life of this team behind the scenes. So I like him. I hope he gets picked up again. He is NA talent as well, I believe. I just want to see him play Bard more. Like his name's literally Chime, but whatever, that's fine. You can play other stuff too. Insanity, obviously. I mean, it's been beaten to a dead horse, right? NA mids, why are they not seeing more play? They're clearly, we'll talk about APA in a bit too, I'm sure, but it's like, guys, like they're so much better than anyone believed they would be, right? They are very clearly like at least top half of the LCS, right? I think some of our best mid laners right now, currently in the LCS, are JoJo, Harry, or not Harry, JoJo, APA, and
Gotcha.
Insanity.
Insanity.
Yeah, they are some of our best mid laners. I mean, Eminez and Gory are probably right there too, and those are our imports, right? But those are like our kind of like not our big name imports. Those are like our side name imports, right?
Hmm.
Like I really feel like LCS mids have totally taken on a new tone, new direction. I mean, we've had Bjergsen and PoE leave the scene, right? So all the
Yeah.
EU imports are gone. We're back to like Korean and NA mids mostly, just and holding it down. I think it looks pretty good. I want to talk specifically about the TL versus TSM game because it was probably one of the most interesting games we had all weekend. Um,
Yeah.
so TL was pretty much ahead most of the time, right? And it was due to TL getting caught out a lot and um, not playing with their lead correctly, blah 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 blah. But I want to talk about one of the reasons why TL got ahead in the first place, and it was like APA is on Casio, and there's this thing where it's the Casio versus Kaisa mid matchup. Kaisa, we've been talking a lot about, right? Kaisa's being talked about in the community. We talked about Kaisa in our Discord. We talked about Kaisa on this podcast. One of the reasons why TL got ahead in the first place was because Kaisa was such a turd until she got to 3 items. Like, Cassio at 1 item can walk around and be threatening and menacing. Like, you cannot walk up to a Cassio who's just sitting in a lane. You have to coordinate like 3 or 4 people to gank her. You have to get Nocturne and Rakan and everybody on to Cassio's ass to kill her. Kaisa has none of that pressure. Like she cannot walk up to things and just be fine, right? If she walks up to a Cassio, she dies. If she walks up to a LeBlanc, she dies, right? So I think that like one of the big reasons why this game looks so like back and forth was pretty much Team TSM did not have a mid laner until they had like the most insane mid laner at 3 items. So it was this huge like just drop in or increase in power level of like TSM is super weak, super weak, super weak. They're just getting bullied. They can't contest anything, and then boom, Kai'Sa hits 3 items, lands some poke, start team fighting like crazy. But they're still playing from behind, and that's why the game looks so close. So I thought this game was a great example of like why Kaisa is bad and good. It was a very interesting, fun game to watch
Yeah. And the fact that, I mean, Summit did well as LeBlanc top, right? But then,
until he
uh,
didn't.
yeah, until he
Like that.
didn't. And then, again, yeah, with Insanity being that fed, it was just, it was nuts at that point with the 3 items. The thing that's interesting, I'm like, is Insanity secretly an ADC main? Because a lot of his mids, in fact, 6 out of his 8 wins have been on quote unquote ADC champs, even though it is the AP Kaiser. He's got Kaiser, he's got Graves, and he's got Tristana, right?
Yeah.
What we haven't seen, and a couple of his
ADC
wins
is
are
weak, by the way.
yeah, he's weak,
By the
but
way.
also like he played LeBlanc, obviously with the static Shiv, and he's got a win on Yone, but we haven't seen him have to play things like Azir, or like he had one game on Ari. I mean, he picked out the Sejuani mid. At first, I was like, I'm hyped for this. I want it to work,
he
right?
is not a jungle main.
Okay,
that's
right.
for
Like,
sure.
look, I'm all for like the crazy picks, right? But that wasn't it, right? But what I'm saying is that if this meta continues, like I have full faith in it. I think the thing that I want to see is can he still play on the more traditional mage like mids, because we haven't had to see it really. We haven't had to, because these other champs are he's proven that he can make them work. So again, he's an awesome mid laner. I just think it's interesting that we still haven't really seen classic like mid lane picks from him, to be honest. So I don't think the meta is going to change anytime soon. Definitely not for like playoffs or anything. I mean, maybe it could, but we haven't seen if he's fully well-rounded yet, this split on other types of champs. But overall, I'm happy to see, TSM, all the sentiments you guys mentioned. But let's move on from there and go to 100 Thieves, because 100 Thieves went 1-2. God, I hate this team. I hate them in the sense that they are just the most unfun, boringest. Even when they win, I'm like, dude, you didn't win. The other team is just, throwing out crumbs and you're just picking it up. And you're like,
Team's
okay.
playing Sejuani mid. Yeah.
Yeah,
mid.
exactly. You're just, like I
Just
said,
kidding.
you're just, I don't know. It's like, do you guys get that same sense of like, man, they just don't do anything. They're literally just
We've been
sitting
saying
there.
this about 100 Thieves for like 2-3 years now. It's
But
True.
I
that's
definitely know.
But that's the frustrating
agree.
thing. I mean, I would say more so for me this split, just because of with the Bjergsen style. But now that Bjergsen was gone, I was thinking we're going to see other things, and but it just seems more of the same. And it's just every game I get more and more frustrated, and I'm done with them. Like, I love Double Lift, but man, he needs. I mean, there needs to be something else. So let's talk about 100 Thieves, because man, they might not make playoffs. It's a possibility. So.
Yeah, fun story. I met a coworker today, a new joiner who's a fan of esports and LCS
Nice.
specifically, and LEC in the past, when G2 was good. But he was a 100 Thieves fan specifically for Double Up Bjergsen for that project, right? And he's like, even
I'm
he was like,
sorry.
after I watched him for a while, I can't. I love Double Up,
Dang.
but I can't support him. And I'm like,
Oh.
man, that's a mood. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's some of us who are doubting whether Double can succeed or not, but like none of us here are not fans of Double, right? We're fans of NA League. He's one of the greatest ever, right? In
Right.
general in the West. And yet, 100 Thieves just managed to make it look like the most boring ass, lifeless, soulless, no anything team ever.
I hope he doesn't retire from this. Like, I actually
He
do.
can't,
I hope.
right? Like this is almost as bad as the 06. It's not as bad as 06 on the international stage, but it's pretty up there in terms of like saddest like ways to end. Like Bjergsen, at least in their last split, like they were still sort of competitive. They almost made it to MSI. They were like top 4 or whatever, top 3.
Yeah.
I was disgusted, guys. I posted a screenshot. Closer did like 769 or 759 damage. No one
Yeah.
like this man
That was
is
good.
actually his soul has left his body. He is incapable of playing jungle. It was on Viego, one of his good characters, right? Like we said, he can
Oh,
only play a few
jeez.
characters, right? And that was one of them. He didn't play it. He got one
Yeah.
kill participation in the whole game. So 100 Thieves is dead. Like they just can't. They don't have enough energy to do anything. I honestly don't know how they beat TSM. It's probably because
The
Sejuani mid.
breadcrumbs. They gave him breadcrumbs, man.
Yeah, they were like, "Here you go."
Yeah.
But it's just so sad. Like I honestly, I could see individual parts of this team being good. Like Sunday's still relatively consistent. Double is still really good. Quid actually had a good game on Jace on their win. I was like, oh, maybe this is like what they saw in their scrims or the VODs before they hired him. Whatever. I don't know. But this team together is actually soul draining, and I can't find a better word than just like I get so sad watching them. They're probably gonna eke into playoffs because they're 6-9 right now. They just need to win like one more basically to almost 100% secure their way. But man, I cannot. I don't think they're gonna do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think their two most important roles are extremely weak, and it kind of makes the game really unplayable. I don't think. I think Quid is fine. He's definitely better than when he started. Good props, fair to him. He's playing. He's doing what he needs to do. But playing mid with just consistently worse jungle support,
Yeah.
it's unplayable. It's the same thing for AD carry. It's the same thing for top lane, right? Like you play top lane, you get randomly 3-manned by jungle support, and you're just like, ah, damn, play safe under tower, I guess. Right? Like it's. I'm a Busio fan. I like Busio. I was hyping him when he came in. I don't know if he's going to stay in the league, unfortunately, just because it feels like his strengths as a player are much more prominent when it comes to solo queue, picking things like singed support, picking Camille support, which is something he's kind of known for, right? Like he's known for these wonky support picks because all support is just a warding item, it feels like in solo queue. And he is very good at abusing that. But when it comes to pro play, he feels very kind of out of his depth, if you want me to be honest. I mean, he's still young, he can grow, but I think he needs more time in NACL. And closer, I don't know what's wrong with him. He he's in a shell.
Mm.
I don't know what to say, man. He's just like not
He's
there.
actually just broken.
Yeah, I mean, closer has never looked good as a jungler without Huhi, right? When you talk about jungle support, it's probably one of the most jungle mid. People a lot talk about. I think it's very important. Jungle support is probably the most important combo
Agreed.
in
100%
terms of
agree.
synergy for Summer's Rift. And yeah, like if Buzio is not experienced, doesn't know what to do, closer very clearly didn't grow enough on his time winning a bunch on 100 Thieves. Like I feel like I've said it so many times, was like the entire team for 100 Thieves when they are winning. Like the amount of like players that came from this roster that don't look nearly as good, right, is pretty insane. Like Someday looks real bad on 100 Thieves. Closer looks real bad on 100 Thieves. Abadage, I mean, he is on Excel and they actually won their series today and they're good, but he looks so bad in their winning games. Like it's insane how the 100 Thieves players have left the org and it's only Hui that looks good, or left that team, right? So closer, I think that he must have a huge gap in his knowledge of jungle. Like that everybody else, they learned these things going through the motions as a jungler in LCS, right? They figured it out. Closer never figured those things out, and then now that he doesn't have his like support structure, there's no Reaper, there's no Papa Smithy, there's no Huhi. He has no idea what the hell to do. And Kane, he comes in and he's like, "Dude, are you like a second grader? Like, where is my like experienced veteran jungler that I'm here to work with?" I really feel like 100 Thieves, like the main thing that they need to work on is like super basic fundamentals. Like literally just lane assignments and objective setups. Like it's the most bare minimum thing you can ask from a professional League of Legends team. So, like they they also, it's like they will get into these game states where it looks like they plan things really well and they came in with a really good game plan against the opponent, and it's their crutch. It's the only thing they can do to get through the early game is to plan it out meticulously, and then they are dead in the water when it comes to mid game. They don't know how to team fight with each other. They don't know what to do when they get a lead, and then the enemy team actually starts to scale up and fight back. Like
Yep.
all they can do is plan, get ahead, snowball, and win the game. That's the only thing they can do. Like if the early game goes bad, they lose. If the mid game they don't have a clear advantage and the enemy team isn't just dying easily, like they just fall apart. So, like this team is just not ready. Like this team would struggle, I think, in the NACL. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
like the only way they would win games is if they dumpster lane. This game is very unorganized. They don't have fundamentals. That's pretty much it. So yeah, I mean, I think they'll actually still make playoffs because their score is just decent enough that they'll make it. I'm pretty sure they just need like 1 or 2 wins and they're very likely to get into playoffs. But they need a absolute double lift tier summer split miracle to make it to Worlds. Like literally, like double lift has to do everything. I mean, this is what TSM 2020 looked like. Honestly, if we look all the way back to TSM 2020, they also looked like a Garbino no fundamentals team and they won the split. So whatever, man. We'll see what happens.
They have double lift and someday. But one
Yeah.
thing I do want to point out is when it comes to fundamentals, I mean, I assume we've all seen that clip of double lift getting one shot by a JSQ and Kaisa W because they both
Yeah.
got hit at the same time. That just should
Mhm.
never happen from that
Yeah.
distance. There's no
Yeah.
like double lift's a screen away and there is no one standing in front of him. That like
It's not cool.
that just shouldn't ever happen.
It's
That-
funny,
that's-
but it's not cool.
It's
very
funny,
funny.
but like if I'm playing and that happens to me, I'm
Oh,
just, I'm walking away. Like
I could see that.
you just don't know where to stand at all. And
Yeah, they don't.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
it's just
funny.
no one's in place.
Yeah, definitely definitely got a lot of work to do. Like I said, I hope if they, poop out this, I again, I don't think they're making Worlds, so eventually it's going to come to an end for the split, but I'm hoping that at the end of this split, I hope Doublelift doesn't retire because I still do believe that he can be good and give him a chance on another team. I think he's still got a lot of fight in him.
Yeah, don't retire.
Closer, I think, to me, I think it's just a case of you got complacent. Like you won a lot, you got kind of complacent. You relied on maybe your support system, your crutch. You didn't grow as an individual, like in your knowledge of the game. Like you have to, we said this plenty of times, like in this game, you have to evolve and grow because it's constantly shifting. Meta's always shifting, obviously. If you don't expand your champ pool, if you don't, expand on what other people are playing and why they're playing it, and maybe you should invest time in that, then you're not going to grow as a player. And so that sets yourself up for disaster because you won't be successful even if you get traded because you yourself haven't evolved as a player. But I do want to go to FlyQuest because the $1 million question is, will this super team even make playoffs? Okay, so they have to play Cloud9. They have to play Immortals,
Nope,
and
we're
then
not
they.
Stop right there.
Immortal. I'm
They're
sorry.
playing
Yeah, it was
Cloud9.
Immortal. Yeah, yeah. No, I thought you wanted me to stop because I said Immortals. I thought you were.
No, no, no. I
You were
heard
like,
Cloud9. And I
yeah.
was like, I'm pretty sure they have to go like 3-0 to make it in, right? So
I mean, it's
They
gonna
have,
be
I'm pretty sure
pretty.
they have to go 3-0. I think
Yeah.
it's like a 2% chance they make it.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. And so, again, they pulled almost the same thing they did last split by subbing out, and this was in playoffs though, where they pulled out Ayla and then put Winsome back in. Well, here they're like, Vikla, you suck. So at the very end, we're gonna sub you out and try this Spearaxe guy, and didn't look good. And so the very next day, put Vikla back in, and again, just all troubles for this team. It was cool to hear the dive episode with Spica on it. I felt like that was really great insight
It was a great episode.
into what's going on back there, and just overall, again, how they view scrims in general don't paint the picture of like real games. So let me get your thoughts real quick on FlyQuest because this is not looking good for them. This could be their last week coming up.
I think this is probably one of the strongest on paper super teams we've made in a while. Like, if you actually just objectively look at this team formation before it went up, I think it was good GMing. They found the best
Yeah.
weak side top laner, Impact. They found one of the best carries, not just in like NA, it's just like in the world, right? LCK, he was top 3, 80 carry, right? And then for Prince, they found the best support because support was their weakest point last split, and they got 3rd place. They got the best support ever for a non-import, right? Like he doesn't count as an import, and he's the only one people they could get. They got him, and then they got Spica, who's probably the best native NA jungle that they could get that was available, right? They could never get Blabber. And then they got Vikla, who was rookie of the split. In LCK,
Rank 1,
they got
NA,
recently
yeah.
good talent. They put them all together, and they improved from the 3rd place split and got a better player. I have no idea how you can collapse this hard. This is, at least in the last 5 years, the worst collapse I've ever seen. Like Liquid had a 9th place split. And that's like they added Broxa, and Broxa was bad. Like that's all it was, right? Broxa was bad for the team at least. This is unthinkable to me. I honestly don't know. I don't even know if you can blame the coaches because we saw what they could do last split. So I think they just lost confidence, and maybe Prince just became a diva. We know what happened with Piglet on Liquid. Looked really good when he came, and then oh my god, Breaking Point happened. So all I want out of this is Breaking Point 2.0 from FlyQuest. That's all I'm asking for. Thank you.
Go.
Have a good
Just
week.
let them lose in
FlyQuest.
peace.
Yeah.
Just let them lose in peace. In Korean.
Just pick me whatever, man. Shiba.
Yeah. And overall, I think the issue with FlyQuest is we kind of see this a decent amount of times with super teams. I think this, and Team Liquid is kind of guilty of this, where they just kind of get 5 on paper really good players, and you just try and force them together but they're really good at different things, so they don't mesh very well. And I think that's the issue that I think that's just the issue that FlyQuest has. Maybe like sure, Isla and Winsome, maybe they're not as good as Vulcan, but they mesh better with the team, right? Like Vulcan, he's very good at what he does, but maybe what he does isn't what the team needs him for. And I think that's like a major issue that they have. Especially with how impactful that role is as a shot caller and just what the role does in general. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but that's my prediction.
Yeah, I mean, I seriously get the feeling after watching it for a while that Vulcan is his laning is a little too weak. I feel like Vulcan's overall like lane phase and focusing on Prince specifically, like it feels like Winsome definitely was like, yo, I'm like Prince's babysitter. Like Prince is my daddy. I do what Prince says. And then you see Ayla and like he did a bit of that too, but he was also like, it wasn't it wasn't as much chemistry. And I really feel like Vulcan is like, I'm here to play with the team. I'm here to like to roam. I'm here to play with the jungler. And I just feel like Prince is not about that. Prince is like, yo, I'm trying to dominate lane. I'm trying to get really far ahead, and like Prince wants to be the main carry, and I think FlyQuest wants Prince to be the main carry as well. But man, the synergy between Prince and Vulcan is like the absolute like worst. It's a travesty. I feel like it is a big deal of why this team is suffering. Is they feel like they are not on the same page. Their lane phase is like looks whatever, and but they get dove so many times. They lose out on so many 2v3s and 2v2s. And then you get to the mid and late game. Prince's positioning is always super ass, and Vulcan is like not playing with him. Vulcan is playing with Spica and Impact and stuff. Like they just don't have synergy. Where I really do feel like when Prince was doing well, it's because he had a support in his back pocket, like playing with him, playing around him in team fights and skirmishes and beyond just the laning phase 2v2, right? That's a big deal. I also feel like that's a problem with Buzio, right? Buzio, he does the exact opposite. He plays very much with Doublelift, for Doublelift, but when it comes to the team play, he's not playing with Closer. He's not playing with the other members. He's pretty much just playing for Doublelift. And you need a complete support player these days. So yeah, FlyQuest. Yeah, maybe Core GJ is coming back to life a little bit these days with the engaged supports.
He's the best support in the league, but okay, yeah, sure, coming back to life.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Coper.
To be fair, Kevin, coming back, being best in league is coming back to life for Core JJ. Let's be
true.
fair.
I mean, I'm not saying I didn't say he
don't
was
think
good
he's
last
best in
split, but who's better than him right now? Does anyone have an argument?
Yeah, it's definitely who he.
No, what I'm trying to
Okay,
say is
maybe.
if he's not best support in the league, he's dead. Is kind of where I'm going.
That's the only two levels you have with Core
Yeah, two
JJ.
levels.
Best
Yeah.
or you dead. There's no
Best
in the
or
middle.
playing Lulu every game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Back to Lulu duty.
I hope God for not, please. Yeah. No, I just to go back to FlyQuest. Will they make it? I don't think so. I don't think they're making it to playoffs. I think this roster, this org, if you listen to the episode with Spica on the dive, very clearly something is very complicated about what's wrong with this team. It's like a huge bunch of weird random things, right? Because they're winning scrims, and from what I get from the interviews that Spica and Vulcan give, they actually give quite a bit. And I think what's his name? Who's the mid lane? Vikla, he did give a small interview too, where we see some insight. I was so curious about this team. They don't seem like they hate each other. They really do. Like other super teams, I bet you Vitality, like Upset and Perks and Bo, they all hate each other, like legitimately, right? And like when you saw Fnatic crashing and burning, I'm pretty sure like Razork and like Upset and freaking other people on that team were just not having a good time. From what I'm getting, FlyQuest does not hate each other. They don't have that energy from what I'm understanding, it's like it really is something that's like super hard to comprehend why this team is doing so poorly. Like I don't really know what it is. I don't think they know what it is. That's the crazy part about FlyQuest.
Yeah.
They really have no idea why they're losing so much because they're still winning their scrims. And you know what? Like Spica talked so much trash about Armao and about EG on the dive, and that was the one team they beat. He called them frauds, and they honestly they beat the crap out of EG. Like Vulcan got his revenge on Ayla and stuff. Like the FlyQuest is only here for drama, man. It's such a weird team, such a funny team.
But also that game against EG was kind of like a remake because they flipped it at level 1, right? Wasn't it that the game? Was it EG where they flipped it? That was the one,
it was
right?
the level 1 invade.
Yeah, the level 1 invade that went bad and ended like super fast. Is that the one? Am I thinking of the different game? No.
That was a different. That was.
Oh, that was
versus
against Golden
T9.
Guardian. That was
Golden
EG
Guardians.
versus
Yeah,
Golden
EG
Guardian.
versus
My
Golden
bad.
Guardians.
Okay, yeah.
Talk about that one though. EG versus Golden, like EG, yeah, they flipped the game level 1. That's what like River said in the post game interview. No, they did not. Like the game was not over level 1.
No, I know.
EG kept flipping over and over and over and be like, so we're behind. We're playing in an early game only engaged comp, so we have to keep fighting. Let's just take the worst fights possible and keep running it down. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, I kind of want to transition to EG because we're moving to the top half now. This was a team that went 0-3, and again, a team that everybody was like, are they for real though? Because the second round robin hasn't been kind to them. And the first round robin, people were like, especially me, I was like, oh, this is good. And a lot of people were, to be honest, because when a team is playing well, you kind of have to like pay attention. But there were, also a lot of people who were like, yeah, but are they actually for real? And so they are kind of coming back now with a little bit of merit because they haven't been looking well. Like I said, flip that game, that game against Golden Guardians, and they lost to FlyQuest again, who's like the last place team, and again, they got some issues to figure out because they are in the top part of the team, but not looking good. So if they want to make a mark in playoffs, they got to fix some things. So talk about EG real quick.
EG, Armeo's fake, guys. I was right.
Yeah,
Guy is
you
a
did say
fraud.
that.
He's
Okay.
been a fraud. Okay, for the last week, he's definitely been a fraud. And in the last 6 games, I would say he's just been falling off. I think
Mm.
JoJo made a lot of pressure, and he just did a lot for this team. They probably just played a style that we haven't been used to, just hard mid carry and hard
Mm-hmm.
mid focus for a while, right? Like we've been talking about how mid's kind of more like an accessory role, more of a backup role. But
Yeah.
EG came in with the style. They came in hot. They really put a lot of resources. It's not just JoJo playing well, just a lot of resources camped around there. And now a lot of teams are just countering them. They're just playing to camp. Not just, but there's a lot more camping of JoJo, right? A lot more denying of Armeo's ability to path. Armeo's not a very good jungler, guys. His pathing's like, at least it seems like other junglers are just walking in and just like taking it to him, and then it kills JoJo's pressure too. Because once your jungler's getting screwed around, you just can't play, right? There are so many scenes of just like Armeo getting stabbed in like bot red buff jungle or wherever the chickens are, right next to the chickens, right? And then you just see Jojo like, like, do I go over and help? I need a farm. I need like, so I mean, it's not that just that Jojo also had some mistakes, but it's just so hard, right? When you're getting targeted, that's what I think. I don't think they're bad per se, but I think they got found out. Now, if they can figure out a style, they're still auto qualified for like at least bottom parts of playoffs. They
Yeah.
still can be strong. But like this is what we were saying, right? They were playing one style, they were playing really good through it, but we weren't sure if they were legit. And I think that they got people like were stub. They stopped being stubborn and they just played into EG, right? They called them out.
Okay.
Well, it's kind of like what I said. Like Armeo's not the best jungler, but he's just in the right. He's where he needs to be. Like his mechanics aren't the best, and
Mm-hmm.
his pathing is not the best, but he always happens to be where he needs to be for plays. And now that I feel like they've probably kind of figured out why he is always there, and now teams are kind of just playing around him. Because they've just, like I said, they found that out, right? He's good at that one thing. How do we counter that one thing? Okay, team's dead. I think that's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of that. It's also a bit of like I think Ayla also had a pretty off weekend. He had some really just misses in his engages, like nothing really clever. I mean, I also think his Melio game was. I mean, just the game against Golden Guardians. I mean, that was just mostly on Armao and JoJo just like being really like Golden Guardians is that team where like the EG versus GG game, like Golden Guardians is like we know what EG can do. They are
Yeah.
clearly stronger in the early game. They have all this like prio. Like it's a level 1 Vi, right? It's really rough for EG. It's a level 1 nerfed Vi for Golden Guardians. But Golden Guardians is just so much smarter. Like they like oh my god, the amount of times that Armao or Ayla they go mid to get JoJo shove so they can all rotate bot for a dive, and it's like hey, Gory and River are there. They know
Yeah.
the dive is coming. Like they're so much smarter than you guys. Like you guys are it's like playing kindergartner League of Legends. Like you guys are really obvious in what you're trying to do, right? It's like when you see a Yasuo dashing around and then he gets his third knock up and he's like, I know you're gonna EQ flash and try to combo me, right? So I just positioned against it. It's that kind of stuff, right? It's like the very simple mind games. I feel like EG their like level of play, like in their macro choices, especially in the early game, which is I guess what decides everything for EG these days because they can't come back in the mid and late game. It just became very repetitive and very obvious. You come mid, you get Jojo Brio, and you rotate to a lane and you dive. Like that's just League of Legends 101. You can't do that against a team that knows it's happening because it's pretty freaking easy to counter if you're just there, right? So I think it's just I said it, Kevin said it, other people have said it, we've all said it, right? EG, they started off hot, they looked great. I knew that they were gonna fall off as time went on. I think they'll still be a solid team. I still think that you have to take them seriously if you want to beat them. You have to play your best. You have to try your hardest against them in playoffs. But if you do, other top teams will beat them handedly.
Yeah.
And that's just EG, right? They fall off in the late game in both terms of in game and in terms of the LCS development, right? They're
Yeah.
just gonna fall off as time goes on. That's just yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
think,
just the truth.
you guys pretty much said it. They got found out, like they came out
Yeah.
like, again, nobody, they flew under the radar basically because people are looking at the team and like, yeah, it's not going to be that great. But they came out and shocked, pretty much all the teams, and now they've been figured out. Everybody knew JoJo was playing insane. And you could just target ban him, you can play camp him, you could do these things, and it feels similar to like 100 Thieves when they found their one style, but they found it late into the last split, and like, oh my gosh, like they're just gonna do this, and eventually you'll in playoffs people solved it, but here it's like people already figured it out after the first round robin. All the teams got to play them. I'm sure they've had a lot of scrims. They figured it out. So that's what it seems to me. But I do want to transition now to the top three teams. Our top three teams, they all went 2-1. So Cloud9, Golden Guardians, and Team Liquid. I do want to start with Team Liquid. So they went 2-1. I want to shout out APA again specifically. I think teams will probably have to ban ziggs on him. That guy's just doing work on ziggs. Even his Cassiopeia, even Cassiopeia, I thought it was fine. Obviously against Kaiza, who's not doing anything in the beginning, but I still thought there were some plays he flubbed on, but he tried to make plays. I thought they were good looks. They just didn't work out okay. But his Nico was pretty fun to watch. I mean, there was one point where he did a sick Nico juke where I don't know who was casting. I think it may have been Jab, but he was like, "Oh man, even I got faked out," and I got faked out too because I was like, "Oh snap!" Like he avoided a gank by doing some pretty clever things, and then he had that one after the Baron fight where he kind of camped out in the dot bush there, the river bush, and got like a 4-man pop loss. It was so sick. So I'm really excited for this guy, and then of course like the Piosic alley oop to him. Like there was just so many cool things that I see, and the fact that he doesn't speak the same language, the communication doesn't seem to be an issue. But with Team Liquid, man, I'm sorry, Kevin, but it does seem like almost there's going to be an inevitable throw somewhere in the mid game. That still seems to be an issue for them. Early game has never been a problem, but their 3 games this week were all like 38 minutes, and then the game against FlyQuest was 30 minutes, right? Like they are having some kind of issues for whatever reason closing out games even when they have leads. So let's talk about them. It's fitting we start with you, Kevin, because Team Liquid, I want them to actually win. I'm kind of secretly rooting for them and Golden Guardians. I just don't want Cloud9 to win again. That's all it is. But what are your thoughts on Team Liquid?
Well, lucky for you, you're talking about the best team in the goddamn league.
Oh, okay.
We have the best mid laner in the league. We have the second best jungler. We have the best bot lane by far. I mean, okay, the reality is they went 4-1 ever since APA subbed in, and they have looked like a real team. They do throw, right? Like this is a fact. No, literally Jack called it out. He's like, yeah, they're kind of prone to throwing. They're probably gonna throw it, and then like 2 seconds later they throw. He's like, I hate this team.
I hate them so much.
It was so beautiful. I thought I was
Top
like,
tier
oh,
clip.
this is scripted. It has to be scripted. But the reality is this team is incredible. They have the best macro of any team in terms of like, yes, they're throwing, right? Sometimes around the map, but how do they keep on having like Summit chain dying in top lane? And then their lead gets bigger every time Summit dies. Because they know better than any other team in the first 25 minutes of the game, they know how to set up, how to arrange for lanes. Like they're doing what like 100 Thieves needs to learn how to do, right? How to assign your people correctly and like have motives, right? Summit is probably going to die, and they probably are used to it, right?
Yeah.
When he gets targeted, he will die. But they're like, okay, we'll just get 2
They
turrets,
play
we'll get
around it
dragon,
now.
We'll get whatever. They
Yeah.
play around it, and they're
Yeah.
like, that's correct. They finally figured it out. They figured out what no other team with Summit in NA could do, right?
Mhm.
It's like when he gets camped, how do we make that a positive? Because if you're sending 3 people all the time, this is the thing we were saying before. Like, how is Blabber not getting something off of all the Summit ganks?
Yeah.
when he was there, right? And someone figured it out. Pioshik has actually been playing as a top 2 jungler. He's actually looked really good. And the second APA something, he looked really good. That's what I've been saying. If he had a real jungler, he'd be good. And APA, I would say he is like probably a top 3, top 2 mid. If you're just talking about since he subbed in, he's been playing incredible. He actually made ziggs meta. Like around the world, I looked at the stats for every league, and before APA played ziggs versus after he played, and Major League started playing ziggs very soon after APA started playing. I
Wow.
don't know if it's a coincidence, y'all. It might just be the it might be the items, might be the matchups. But I'm just saying APA invented the meta for ziggs.
Mhm.
I don't think the character is blind pickable. I don't think the character is always broken, but in the right comps and the right looks, it is incredibly strong, right?
It's a flex
He
too, which is why it's so powerful.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's a flex too. This guy, he came in and he alone is the reason why Liquid isn't losing the late games. Not because he's hard carrying, but because he's not doing what Harry does in them.
Yeah.
And to me,
Yeah.
that makes him one of the most valuable players in the league so far. So Liquid, yeah, they're still throwing, but like you guys have to remember, they literally replaced mid lane 2 weeks ago, less
Mhm.
than 2 weeks ago, because he came in halfway through the week, and they are looking like a top contender now. I think this team has probably the highest threat level in terms of variance. They are the most likely to like just randomly 3-0 you, and you're like, what the shit just happened? But
Mhm.
Yeah.
they could also bomb out to like friggin' Dignitas or something, someone who else is a contender, right? So I think they're super exciting. I'm so glad that he's in. I just talked for like 4 minutes about my favorite team.
you were
Oh,
you were excited, bro.
I'm finally here,
Go.
guys. I
it's
started
good.
this split arguing that they would be first, and I don't know how we got here, but we're getting close.
Yo, it's
Which,
like
yeah.
it's like we just like Kevin was behind the the gate, right? Like, and he was like, "Let me go," and then we were just like,
If you
"Team
look at
Liquid,
my cam
go!"
every time, like if we did a compilation of every podcast for the last like 2 years, every time we get to Liquid, I just like look depressed, okay? And we just give me this.
I give it to you, man. That's awesome. All right, Alistair, what do you think?
I mean, I don't think there's much to say after that, to be honest. I
Yeah,
feel like
right.
everything that has been said is all that
Yeah.
needs to be said. But
Mhm.
the one thing I will add is, if you want me to be honest, I think APA is contender for MVP.
Uh, not,
Whoa.
not,
It's
not
impossible
literally.
because of the rules
Yeah.
for MVP. Like they're never gonna
Yeah.
give someone who came in like
Yeah,
You'll,
over.
Yeah, yeah.
But
he doesn't have enough games.
but
Yeah.
but
I
he
don't
definitely
think
is a
I don't think
contender.
he'll get it because
But like,
he's only. But I think, again, like the way I look at MVP, I don't just go like, oh, best player on best team. It's like, who's literally the most valuable player to their team? TL did not look very good. APA comes in there 4-1.
yeah.
That's like that screams like this guy is really important to his team, and he is pulling it back together from honestly what was almost a burning ship with Harry. And aside from that, I yeah, Kevin kind of said it all.
Nice.
With a little copium added in, but I
Yeah.
believe it 100%.
There you
Unfortunately.
go.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
this team's
that's what
good.
copium is, right?
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
true. That's true.
this team's good. This team's fun to watch. They're very aggressive. Yeah, I do think like they're man they really worked hard, man. Like I said this, I have just been steadily impressed at how much they improve. Like, yeah, now they actually seem like they're a good team. I you can definitely tell this is a team that since like beginning of spring to now, they've been steadily working on their fundamentals,
Yeah.
like over and over again. Just oh my god, the grind is finally paying off. Like
Mhm.
because from what we hear, these guys are massive grinders. They play the game 24/7 all the time. So I mean, it's good that it's finally paying dividends. I actually think Pioshik, yeah, he's a top jungler in this league for sure. He's completely unleashed when he has a real mid laner. I do think Pioshik is, yeah, he might be up there with like, yeah, I think he's up there with like Blabber and River. I think honestly the
Yep.
three can kind of go back and forth as maybe being the best seeming right now. Pioshik is pretty freaking nuts this split. After looking really bad last split, so I'm impressed. I like this team. This team's good. I mean, the thing that is holding this team back is just like, yeah, sure, Summit dies and you can get some other stuff behind, but it's like having the Baus FFS on your team in pro play. It's like, yeah, you can like ids and you can get some stuff off of the back of Summit running it down, but then there comes to a point where it's like it it's just not enough. Like having a 4v5 is not worth like an extra little gold lead because there's just pressure and tempo and objectives that don't equate to a gold lead that are much more impactful in the mid and late game. Like there's something about like death timers, right? If you die before you hit level 7, it can oftentimes be worth it because of how the wave control works and how low the death timers are. But once you hit level 7, there's certain breakpoints where it's super random that Riot made, right? Level 7 is a longer death timer. I think like level 9's a longer death timer or whatever. But like for the most part, like there gets to a point where Summit dying, it doesn't matter how much gold you get on the other side. It's super grief. It messes up your tempo super hard. So that is what Team Liquid needs to work on. That's what Summit needs to work on. He gets sleepy in the mid game. He forgets that he's playing a pro
Absolutely.
game. Like legitimately, man.
Yeah.
This guy has I don't know, man. This guy
Well,
is like he just
if he's a grinder, he probably is just
oh,
all the games are just being a blur by now. He's like, wait,
I
oh,
think
I'm
it
not in
must
solo
be.
queue. What happened? Yeah.
He's like that martial artist that like goes absolutely nuts when he's bad, but then you guys ever see Naruto? Rock Lee, like
Yeah.
he's like injured and he kind of sucks, but then he gets drunk and he's like the most insane like fighter ever. Like that's Summit, man. Like this guy is permanently drunk and just super inconsistent, but he goes Super Saiyan sometimes and he's nuts. And like playing LeBlanc top looked like absolute AIDS for like 15 20 minutes and then he
Hmm.
just died like 5 times in a row over and over and over again. And it's like, yo, how are you dying on LeBlanc against like a Nocturne Ord, man? Like, don't you just like dash flash away, can't get touched? But no, he just dies because he dashed in your face and tried to auto you once and then got blown. I don't know. So this team is good. They're definitely contenders. I think they're probably gonna go to Worlds. The only thing I'm worried about, right, is like when they hit playoffs versus regular season, this team's problem is their mentality. It's the amount of pressure that they can handle before it gets to their heads and they implode. They still throw in the mid game sometimes. They still have weird team fighting. So Summit has never looked good in any playoffs of any league ever in the history of his career.
It's true. Yeah.
Korea, China, or NA, he has never had a good playoffs run ever. So if we get to playoffs and the Team Liquid has 2 lives, if he runs it down his first series, I am off the TL train, 100%. Like I will not be believing TL if
Mm.
Summit runs it the f down in their first series in playoffs. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
they're on a
Okay.
tight margin for me. But I mean, if they keep it up and they stay looking like this and they improve steadily till the end of the season and through playoffs, I think they make it to Worlds. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely fun, exciting to see. All right, let's go to Golden Guardians. They also went 2-1. Although one of those games, like I said, was that flip there with the level one. But I will say it was fun to see Gory. He had like 10k gold, I think, at like 15 minutes. He was absolutely
Biggest
just fun.
fucking gold leader.
It was so fun to just watch him just pop everybody. You're just like, oh my gosh, man.
That was
Uh,
inhuman.
and they won that game in less than 20 minutes. I think Evil Gene at that game. I think they did the right thing of just basically FFing. Like EG was like, you know what, you're in our base, just take it. They're like just, and I think it was a smart move because it was just wasn't good for EG. But talk about Golden Guardians again. Like honestly. Everyone went 2-1, right? The top three, so it's not that worrying. But again, you see a team playing so well, and then they lose to energy. So it
Hey,
always,
it's
you know,
hey, I'm a reverse copium for Team Liquid is for Kevin. I got Golden Guardians. Hey, Energy, they're allowed to be top teams. That's the one team.
yeah,
They
right,
can be
okay,
any
True.
top
that's
team.
true.
It's fine.
That's a
It's
good point.
okay.
That's
Not a
true.
big
Yeah,
deal, guys.
if you lose, yeah, if you're a top team, you lose to energy, then okay, it's kind of okay. It's kind of scripted in that, anyway. So all right,
It's fine, guys.
talk about Golden Guardians. Heading into this last week.
I mean, it's the people's team. This is one of the best teams
Yeah.
to cheer for. Like these are the guys. I mean, other than Liquid, that if they get to international, like they have the highest chance of like actually doing something.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I think over C9. C9's proven and tested with this like core roster that like they go over and they just don't put up a fight. Honestly, this
No.
is kind of my
Yeah.
bias, but I just don't think they have the spark to take back fights when they're outdrafted or even when they have the right draft, they can't execute as well. And I think this team has shown that they have really good teamwork. I mean, Gory and River are actually legit. Like Gory is what MNS. If Gory was on C9, C9 would be like like 14-1 or some shit like that right now. Like this guy is significantly better when he can get a lead than I think MNS is with way less variance. Now
Hmm.
he has his bad games, but everyone does that. Okay, the only thing I'll leave it off on is like, how did that become a 19-minute game? If that's a 19-minute game, how's the Mad Lions game a 16-minute game? That's all I'm saying.
Hey,
16-minute break.
let's go.
Let's go.
I'm sure the Red Thread also said this, but like I was just sitting there
Yeah.
like, what in God's name? So that's
How?
all I have to
I
say
don't
about
know.
that one. I'm happy that they're still doing fine. They're still strong. They are a really good representative for us. If they still drop off a bit and they're our fourth seed, we will absolutely smash EU's fourth seed. So like it's
Hell
all
yeah.
wins for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty. I'm pretty comfortable saying they make Worlds. I mean, I think we might get to it after, but who we think is going to make the Worlds, Golden Guardians is in there for sure. So
Mhm.
again, I think Kevin kind of said most of it, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Okay.
They're looking good. Glad to see it because again, I didn't expect it, but
Mm.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this team. That's all I'm gonna say. We'll let the games speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you just watch the games. They're
Right.
they're freaking spicy. Like they're
They're
so
good.
fun. They're so fun to
Yeah.
watch. They're good. They're just all. It's just five playmakers, guys. It's actually
Hmm.
just five fakers on one team. And faker it's so it's okay to say that it's five
Yeah.
fakers. They're all smurfing. So that's
Hmm.
all I have to say about them. They're good. You
Okay.
already know they're good.
Golden
Well,
Guardians is 5 fakers. That's the title of the episode.
that's the title of the episode, man. I mean, that might as well be it. I think
Golden
that'll be it.
Fakers.
Golden Fakers.
Golden
I like it.
Fakers.
Oh
Hey, I like
man.
that.
All right. Well, let's talk about Cloud9 then. Right. Last, they also went 2-1. They're the first place team. I think if I say anything, it's just that like I think Fudge has kind of fallen off a little bit.
Get him off Renekton, bro. It's
Yo.
so hard.
I mean, I guess at least he admitted it, right? That he doesn't
Yeah.
he doesn't want to play, but
last week. Why is he still doing this
I
week?
that's what
It's
I
not
don't.
him, dude. It's
Yeah,
Fudge, for
exactly.
Sure. Max Waldo. Yeah.
So I don't know what the deal is there, and maybe that's sucking the joy out a little bit. Maybe he'd rather play something else, and maybe that's affecting him. But either way, look, they're still pulling out wins. I mean, even the loss that they had against Team Liquid, it was they battled. They could have won that game. So
Berserker, man.
Berserker is freaking dude. Did you see him on Ash? Oh my gosh, his Ash spacing was so good, and honestly, Blabber's Kindred is like phenomenal. Like his ultis were
Yeah.
just on point, man. You're just like, holy cow, this is a good team. But anyways, talk about Cloud9 real quick, because again, number one team. But
I mean, are they the number one team? They're 2-0'd by Liquid with Harry in it. I'm just saying. I'm bringing it back to Liquid because Jesus.
yes,
LCS
That game
math
against-
doesn't work. That's all I'm saying.
That game
Yeah.
against Liquid and Cloud9, I think that was one of the most fun games of this season.
It
And the
was-
most-
oh, yeah.
Honestly, I think 4 out of the top 10 games of this season are all Liquid games because they're always just bangers. You never
they
know
are.
what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I think Berserker is incredible. His spacing and his confidence was exactly what we were talking about with
Yeah.
what's his name,
So
Tomo
good.
earlier. Like if he was like 80% of the play Berserker was, they would have won those scenarios.
Mhm.
Berserker was so good there. Now, yeah, definitely Blabber also showed up. I think MNS was like AFK from the server. Like this man was like casting Lissandra ults just like completely uselessly over and over. It was actually criminal. I think that this guy is probably a good fit for C9 because he has a good team around him and he can perform well when he's has a good team around him. But if this guy was ever like put onto like a middle to lower tier team, he would absolutely flop. I don't think he has the ability to single-handedly be a good pressure point. He needs enablement, but he is good when he has enablement. And Fudge, his Rumble game was really good. But otherwise, like,
Yeah.
man, like, why? Why the croc, man? I just
Yeah.
like Summit was 2-6-4 and Fudge was 4-2-4, but you couldn't tell because like there were just some fights at the end. Oh, how this game ended was criminal. Liquid should have like not gotten the win that easily. What were
Yeah.
they doing? What
Yeah.
was C9 doing? This is like why I was saying Golden Guardians and Liquid are better for Worlds. Like
Mhm.
they had actually like a really good end to winning the game. We had Berserker scale. They had the Kindred at late game. And then they just ran out for a 4v4 and then
Mhm.
MS doesn't know how to stop a TP apparently. He just like doesn't want to go under tower. And Summit gets a perfect flank and just like kills Berserker. Although APA also played that like a god. Honestly,
Yeah.
this game was great. It showed that C9 does have class, but like they just make bad calls when it matters.
Mhm.
Is what I think.
Okay.
I mean, I can agree for the most part. I mean, I think I do want to shine one person up who I feel like, we kind of had these doubts, and props to Sven, because I feel like everyone had the doubts like, oh, he's just playing enchanters. He looks good on the melee supports. I mean, it's not the best, but like it's better than I think most people expected. And to be fair, some of it's on Braum, which isn't exactly like a dive champ.
Mhm.
Sure.
But his Nautilus looks good enough. I mean, we haven't seen him on a lot of Rel, which is kind of the int or god kind of champion. And we haven't seen Leona, I suppose. But compared to what we expected, it's like, okay, he can play Renata and he can play Lulu and he can play Yumi. Like, okay, whatever. But he is looking good on these melee supports, which I think is a big deal. I think that's a big
Mhm.
question mark for everyone.
I think it's really telling. The only time they ever played Rel this whole season was against Immortals. That's the one game they let him play Rel because they know
Yeah,
he's not good at it. They had to let him get a stage game on it, but he's not good at it yet.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean they played Nautilus against Hundred Thieves and Braum against EG this weekend. I mean it's like I am still very suspicious of Sven on melee supports.
Yeah, Milio's his most played right
Yeah,
now
he,
still
I
he's a
don't
too.
good. He
I
has
don't
a
think
good
it's
ass
the
Milio.
best. I
Yeah.
don't think it's the
Is
best, but
Milio a
props.
melee though?
No,
No,
Milio's
that's why I'm
crazy.
saying I'm saying like even though he's been looking good, but his still most played champ is Milio so
Yeah,
far,
Milio's
and
broken.
Yumi. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah. He has to improve. He's not the worst, right? He's not an absolute
yeah,
turd. I mean, Sven is just a good player in general. I feel like he
sure.
could play any role, any position, and just be decent. Honestly,
Hmm.
like that's just Sven in a nutshell. The problem with Sven is like where's his peak at, right? His peak is you know he's along for the ride. I think he's playing pretty well and he's doing his job, but he's along for the ride. I've never felt like in his time as a support, anyways, he's ever been an absolute standout for this roster. Um, and even when he was an ADC, he was never been an absolute standout when he was in NA. So yeah, I think that this team is a bit hard capped by honestly their solo laners and their support. I think Blabber and Berserker probably have the best hands in the entire league. Like these
Yeah,
two
they're sick.
players are absolutely cracked with their hands.
Hmm.
Um, I mean that's just roster, right? I think Fudge, he's had a lot of trouble with international top laners, and it might be bleeding over to LCS. I don't think so. I still think he's gonna be fine in playoffs and do pretty well. I think Eminez is also like I mean, he had a really bad Lissandra game, right? One of the reasons why C9 lost that game in the first place and didn't stop the Summit TP was because he TP'd to bot lane anyways. He TP'd to bot lane to shove the wave. He stayed there while Clyde9 chased Team Liquid from their base all the way to the top lane. And someone's like, yeah, I got TP. Like, why did you TP bot lane? Like, that was a mega grief play from Eminez. Um, I still think Eminez is going to be fine. He's going to be a solid mid
Yeah.
laner. He's going to be good.
Mhm.
Are they going to win the split though? Are they? That's the question, right? They're going to
Right.
Worlds probably. Are they going to win
Hmm.
the split? I feel like. I mean, I predicted them at the beginning of this split that they were, but I actually feel like they're not. I think we're going to see someone new take the title for this summer, and I think it's going to be spicy. I do think
NRG
they're going to
baby.
NRG, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah. I don't know
Someone
about
new
that one.
indeed.
I don't think
Yeah.
Someone
so.
new. I think Cloud9 is gonna meet someone in the finals, and they're going to lose because they don't look like they've improved. I feel like Cloud9 is the same top team they were last split, and almost the same top team they were the split before. Is this Cloud9 any better than when Jensen was at peak performance last year playoffs? No, they look the
Yeah.
same. They look just the same. They don't have their innovative picks are the same innovative picks that they had from last year to last split to this split, right? I I think this team isn't improving as much as they need to be to continue to be our best team, to continue to represent us as first seed at Worlds,
Yeah.
to make a difference in the LCS like paradigm. So we'll see.
Yeah.
C9 is kind of the main character of the league, right? They're in all the interviews. They're on the desk all the time. They're on the cast all the
Yeah.
time. It would be a great anime redemption arc for another team to take them down. Yes.
I think that's why it is really exciting, like you said, because it's a good team. This LCS split to me has been, even though it's had you know I honestly too I've enjoyed all the super weeks, right, since because of the lockout. Like we've had
Yeah.
three days of LCS every week. And I love it, right? That's great for me. I don't mind that it's been 6 weeks. I don't know, but anyways, like that's all the teams. But I did want to just point out one thing about the meta, and it really has to go with why I also think the games have been more enjoyable for me. So because I was watching, I was like, man, these are fun games. In addition to the games being fun themselves, like I was just thinking, like I actually enjoy this meta specifically right now because first of all, we have like a ton of flex pick options, right? You got Rel, Poppy, Kai'Sa, Tristana, Nautilus, Cassante, right? Like those champs can be picked and you don't know where they're going, right? With all the ADC mids and Rel being jungle or support. I think what's also great is some of the builds, like again because of supports like Rel, or even Nautilus in the jungle. You've got even Shroud being built there in combination.
That's my item, baby.
Yeah,
I
like
love that
or
item.
in combination with like Radiant Virtue. So it's like you can combine these items that aren't just on supports; they're on junglers who can play support. And so it's interesting because it adds some dynamics into the build pass for the teams. Again, with so many engaging champions, just count how many hex flashes there are, right? Like hex flash makes the game fun, right? Because people are just
Yeah.
surprised, and yeah, I think there was a game I counted. There was 4 hex flashes in the Golden Guardians versus Energy. It was a Poppy, Alistar, Leona, Nautilus, all had hex flashes, and it's like I think like those things, for me in this meta make it fun, because it's like there's just so much to see. Like, so the drafts are spicy because you don't know where these players are going. The hex flashes make more playmaking opportunities. The build paths are exciting. So for me, I was just thinking about that. Like I said, in addition to the teams kind of being closer to parity and underperforming and overperforming, like that stuff too, for me, the meta has made it exciting as well. Did you guys have any thoughts or comments on that, or maybe anything else in the meta, or anything in general, to add?
Yeah, just to talk about a bit about the items. I said this like a year ago, I think, and people have finally been catching on. Evan Shroud is like one of the most broken items in the game. I mean, even more broken when it got a 200 gold cost reduction at MSI.
Yeah.
This item is really OP on more champions than you think, right? We're finally seeing it on junglers. I think that's a long time coming. We
Yeah.
see it very, very occasionally on top laners, very rarely. I think it's great on some top lane champions. If you're a top laner and you don't have like a mythic that is very clearly like this is what you should buy this game, Evan Shroud is your move, right? It's super
Orn.
cheap. Orn,
Yeah.
Orn Evan Shroud is not the worst, right? Especially if the enemy team has CC, because that's how the item works. If
Hmm.
you get CC'd or you CC someone, you get damage reduction on everybody in an AoE. The item is completely broken. I expect it to get changed or nerfed. Some other broken items are Abyssal Mask. This item is very, very OP. Um, it increases your magic damage. It reduces their like it's just straight up numbers. Stat stick. Other items are OP that we have been seeing, which I think is great, is Knight's Vow. Frozen Heart has
Hmm.
obviously already been
Yeah.
broken. Zeke's I think is very underrated when you have all these ADCs. If you're a
It's
jungler
true.
or as a melee support, you have some CC. Throw a Zeke's on one of your ADCs. You will be surprised how much damage this freaking item does because it procs not just on auto attacks but also abilities. A lot of really broken support items out there that not enough people are buying. If you're an ARAM enthusiast, you already know what the meta is, right? It's literally Evan Shroud Abyssal Mask on all the tank players in ARAM.
Yeah.
Like, it's the move. So, it's fun. It's fun to finally see these players build these items. I think they've been broken for a long time, though.
I mean, I will give credit where credit's due. You said it a long time ago, and you've been saying Evan Shroud almost every time. Like you're like Evan Shroud, y'all, and it's kind of like when Alistair was like crying Jinx for so long. Like, why is Jinx not being played? I think Jinx will be
Very
played.
dirty
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I credit given to where credit's due. You guys have had some sleeper calls that it's taken forever for the rest of the league to follow. So
Just get us
yeah,
to coach a team. Seriously.
I mean,
Yeah, let's
we
coach a team, guys. Let's do it.
hey, anybody can get an NACL now, right? So we can
Yeah.
just start
Let's
one.
go
You know what I mean?
contact Toast or something, like one of the influencers, and then we
Yo,
Exactly.
Mr. Beast, we know you watch this podcast.
Yeah,
every
we
day,
we know
all the
it's on
time.
your feed. You got
Just give us
alerts
some
on.
money.
Yeah, you got alerts, notifications. You're
what
like,
is it?
whoa,
I helped 4
podcast.
podcasters to pump up their coaching careers or something like it next YouTube.
Hey, maybe
Hey,
that's our next guest. Maybe we
I'm
get
with
Mr.
it.
Beast on here. He's nice.
Yeah, I'm
Dude.
down.
Nah, I'm
That's a nice
totally down.
nice next step after Azale. Yeah, Mr.
Exactly.
B.
I'll tweet this clip. I'll make a clip, tweet it to him. Maybe he'll respond. You never know.
Hell,
So
let's do it.
let's go. All right. Well, any final thoughts for you guys? I know we went long. Alistair said he was trying to go to the gym. I don't believe him. Just kidding. He said, I got to go early because I got to go to the gym. Nah, you
I
can
have a
still go,
final
man.
thought. It's actually related to Zale. Some people were giving him shit as TSM's doing well about him saying good riddance to TSM.
Oh, what?
I hope people know in context it was completely related to management's decision to
Yeah.
pull out of LCS, to completely half-ass LCS for the last year or two and go to another region, maybe LPL, whatever. That's the fuck TSM comment, right? That's
Yeah.
what he was saying, or good riddance, or whatever he said, right? Um, it's not anything to do with the players. He's
No.
probably happy that some of the oldies are doing well. So don't give him shit for that. Like,
I mean,
if
what do
you
you
give-
expect from
Yeah,
Reddit
no,
and Twitter? Yeah.
Really
The
need
most
to separate
sanest
the
Reddit
players from the management.
Yeah.
The most sanest Reddit take or Twitter take, right? Like they, like if
whatever
you're
it
saying
was.
that it's just knee-jerk reaction, you have like no context, or you're just speaking mindlessly. Because,
Yeah,
mean,
I think any. Go
any
ahead.
real LCS player
Yeah.
hates TSM org. Like
Exactly, yeah.
if you're in tune with LCS, you hate Reggie and you hate the
The
LCS.
TSM players might hate TSM org while they're
Exactly.
winning.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Double Lift
I'm
did.
sure Ruby is
He
not
was-
happy.
Yeah, yeah, he's not. Oh man, that's dirty. Yeah, that's a sting. No, I mean, and I think anybody who's really in the scene knows that that's just like everybody knew what Azael meant. Like, if you didn't, you're obviously not paying attention. So it's
I
whatever.
just thought
Plus,
it was so funny. Reggie tweeted "Good riddance" himself. I'm like, bro, you say it to yourself, man. Like, look in
Yeah,
the mirror,
yeah,
bro.
for-
Like, oh my God, Reggie.
he's so out of touch.
Uh,
Forget that guy. Anyways, the former TSM fan hating on TSM. Just Reggie though, and management. But that's gonna do it. I appreciate all of you guys being able to make your schedules work for this. Thank you for all of you listening out there. We really appreciate the support. Love the discussions. Join our Discord if you haven't already. Love to have more people just talking LCS and all that good stuff. So until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Peace.